me talk to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Assemble. I'm Matt. Good to have you here. And today, it's a fantastic day. Why? Let me talk to you. We've got Sam Vallely here from Ultra Pro Wrestling, lead director, visionary. Sam, what is the official title? What should we do? What should we call you, my friend? Thank you so much, Sam, for coming by.
I guess lead developer. I guess now that this obviously started off as a one-man project, but it's now turned into a bit of a bigger thing. So I think my official title is director. But yeah, I suppose I serve quite a few roles.
You should do the Tony Khan thing of like, I am lead director, general manager, head of creative. Your business card is about 10 titles long.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like that sometimes. You know, I have to wear a lot of hats doing everything that I'm doing, but yeah.
So if you guys are not familiar, Ultra Pro Wrestling is a fantastic project that is in the works. Sam is going to give us all the details. We have a lot to talk about today. We're very fortunate to have Sam with us for about an hour, and we are going to go through the kind of nuts and bolts. I have a lot of questions, and if you guys have questions in the chat, if we are live, throw them in there or stay tuned. If you guys are channel members as well, we'll highlight everything. If you donate, we'll highlight all of those messages and get to them. But we're going to kind of save all of that for the end of the show, as well as Ultra Pro Wrestling's big announcement Sam is offered and was nice enough to share on the show today. So we'll be able to do that towards the end. But Sam, if people are not familiar, my friend, what the heck is Ultra Pro Wrestling? What have you done? What is this?
So you know, it all goes back to the AKI games, which I'm sure people are almost now starting to get sick of hearing about. I think a lot of games are coming out saying we want to be the next AKI game. This whole thing actually started off probably about close to 10 years ago now. I started working actually with a company in Scotland. We were going to develop a wrestling game. Actually, that one started out as a 2D game, which, you know, almost like the kind of WrestleFest kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
Then, yeah, it just evolved, and we thought, well, actually, let's do a 3D version. And then I thought, if I'm going to do a 3D version of a wrestling game, obviously I have to look at the AKI games as the kind of main inspiration. So that was a project for a little while. Sadly, that kind of fell apart. A few years went by, and yeah, I'd work on different things, but I just couldn't really shake the idea of creating a wrestling game. Now, with my vision being an AKI, I think I got myself so excited thinking about the potential of taking that AKI engine, and not just making a pure remake, but looking at it through the lens of what would those developers what would they have done had they continued. You know, obviously there was certain limitations with it. I mean, me personally, I think those games are pretty perfect. You know, it's hard to fault with them. But you know, just the advances in technology. You look at some of the limitations, like you can only have 4 characters in the ring. You don't have like an online mode. And for me, like one of the biggest things about playing No Mercy was playing it with my friends. And we love to be, you know, competitive and see who the best was. And so the idea of taking that experience online, that in and of itself, kind of justifies, you know, the want to create something that was an AKI game in 2024, where you could have all these other experiences. You could play online. You could have more than 4 people in the ring. Mm-hmm. You could expand the creation suite. Obviously, the graphics nowadays, you look at them, they're quite, you know, outdated. They never had a referee in the ring, which was another thing. And you know, towards the end, you look at those AKI games, they started introducing things like guest referee. And that makes me think that those developers, they were headed in that direction. They were sort of laying the foundation for these things, but it just never happened. And of course, you look at the landscape as well, the AKI games. I don't know about too many wrestling games from back then that are still being modded and still people are keeping up to date with you know, with those games and what that core engine meant to them. But you look at the AKI landscape and there's constant, you know, updates and mods, and people are even modding that game to make like new moves possible and things like that. And just to be clear what we're doing, because there has been some confusion, some people saw the first trailer that we put out, and obviously our intention as a base jumping off point is that we want to pretty much replicate the game as much as we can. So of course, all the animations that we're doing, we're trying to get them as close to the original animations as possible. It's difficult. There's a whole process with that, but we're getting kind of close with them.
Yeah.
And we put out this trailer, and people, a lot of people said that's just a mod. But no, it's not a mod. It's a whole
It's
game engine. It's been built from the ground up.
all done from scratch. Because I remember you saying this
Yeah,
in previous interviews too, that like everything is done from the ground up, right? Like all of the moves.
yeah,
Like I have it on screen right now, just for the original showcase of just trying to do a suplex to running out of the ring and doing the clothesline. That looks basically identical to what we grew up with the games of like No Mercy. Even for the
yeah.
grapple animation, you're saying that all of that is just done from scratch.
Yeah, and because we've done such a good job, you know, it's funny because I look at it and I notice, especially if you play in slow motion, I notice all the little flaws and all the little bits that I need to go in and fix. But we do have people that just refuse to believe that it's a recreation. They say it's so close, which is great.
That's great.
Um, but I actually have I don't know if I'm allowed to show it, so maybe I'll need to look into that. But as I said, I was working on a game with the company in Scotland. I actually created a trailer for them that's never been shown. Um, and I'm not sure if that would cause issues if I was to show it. But in that trailer, and I have showed some people, you see version one of the animations. Um, where you know we're trying to sort of set up the timing, get everything right, but they look bad. They look janky. They're just not as smooth. They're not as clean. They're not as accurate. Um, so you know that's there. If people really did doubt that what we're doing, I can show them the version one of what it used to look like. But obviously we've come a long way. We do a lot with trying to do as close we can to match up these animations. You know, we're looking frame by frame and counting frame numbers of like the highest point, like of a suplex. You know, we look up. Sorry, that's me. I think. You know, when someone does a suplex, we look at the exact frame number of when his feet are up in the highest point. Um, we sometimes do video capture of the moves from No Mercy to get from all the different angles. So we're doing everything that we can to basically recreate that. But again, coming back to this is what we want to do as a jumping off point. Once we have the fundamentals down, um, and getting those animations accurate as well actually helps us building out the gameplay.
Right.
Because if the animations in terms of timing and all that stuff, it helps us line up like the grapple. We make sure that the grapple starting off point, they're rotated the right way and all that stuff. So that's another reason why we're intentionally doing that, is so that when we make the game engine, when we actually are building out the gameplay, we're getting everything accurate. But once we've got that engine sort of mirrored, then we can expand on it. Then we can say, okay, this is what the AKI developers had. What would they have done going forward now? How can we add in more stuff? You know, just actually the AEW game did this as well with adding in things that those games didn't have, like rope grapples and things like that.
Right.
Obviously, we want to again expand upon that experience in
So
a similar way.
there is a lot of obviously care and attention to detail. Like you're going bit by bit to try and recreate and then build upon what the original engine had done. One of the things that was I always loved about the old games is like I guess the simplicity, the straightforwardness, and just how easy it is to just jump in and play and go. That is the sense that I get from Showcase and everything you've talked about in the past too. Then we fast forward to today's games, and within wrestling games specifically, they're massive. Like there's match type after match type, mode after mode, fans wanting this match type to this mode to these things. And when I've looked at UPW, you're offering a lot. Like where there's a substantial amount that you guys are working on to include in the game, from create a championship to the career mode. You mentioned the online component too, not to mention the roster depth and the DLC that's confirmed. Can you talk to me first about the career mode? Because that's usually one piece that players are looking at is, okay, what am I going to be able to do outside? I want to talk about core match types too, and what what's kind of in the works. But with career mode specifically, Sam, what's kind of on the roadmap? Because I've looked into it, but some people may not have.
So I guess a few years back when I started thinking about this as a game and thinking about career mode and stuff like that, I came at it from the perspective of what would I personally want out of a career mode. And again, you go back to those AKI games, and one of the things that I used to love doing was just in the creation suite. Updating the roster, like a week would go by on Raw, and all of a sudden someone would have a haircut, and so I wanted to, I always keep my roster updated. But if I'm creating a career mode in a world,
Mm-hmm.
um, I first of all, I guess before we had characters fleshed out and all this stuff, um, we kind of wanted just to make characters that were essentially vessels for prototypes. So like we would have a character that was sort of loosely based on the Undertaker. He might not look like the Undertaker,
Right.
but the idea is that he would have his own story in the game that would pretty much play out the way that the Undertaker's career have. Like he'll have a streak and all that stuff. And so yeah, so it gets difficult when you try and put that across every conceivable wrestler that there's ever been. So obviously there's limitations on it. Um, but sorry, I need to get a drink of water. The starting point for the career mode was that you have a bunch of characters that represent these real life wrestlers, and then you tie that to pay-per-views, the real world
Right.
pay-per-views, promotions, and then of course, as I said with the career wrestler, when you want to change someone's haircut, they might look a certain way, like the Undertaker. He might look a certain way in 1999, but then you want to go back and play as him in 1988, whatever. Oh, I don't think he debuted by then, but I'm kind of messing it up. But yeah, the idea coming in was, what do I want out of a game? And I want a world where I can pick any wrestler throughout any history, throughout any promotion, throughout history, and play through their career. Um,
So Sam,
and
was it?
obviously,
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say, obviously, not having licensing for these wrestlers, it meant that we kind of had to create prototypes, I guess.
Yeah.
We had to create these prototypes. So that's where it all kind of stemmed from. There's a lot more. See, my mind's kind of working because I'm trying to think of the elements of it. I'm trying to give you the starting point, but then also it's sort of slightly changed. There's a whole dynamic element to it, where now it kind of works like an RPG. So
Okay.
you'll have your base character, but you can interact with the other characters in the game, like the Undertaker prototype, and he'll be on his path. But the idea is that you can interfere with that. So if he's got his story set up to the point where he's sort of in place to be the guy who's going to get the streak, because that's what we've sort of predetermined.
Mm-hmm.
If you beat him in like his first equivalent of WrestleMania, then that won't happen. His streak won't happen. Maybe the streak angle could be applied to your character. Maybe it could be applied to another character.
Wow.
So we have this. This is why I'm getting so kind of flustered, because there's so
There's
much to
so
it to
many
try.
different. There's so many
It's
different threads. It sounds like of just
yeah,
if you do
yeah,
this, it's going to impact this, and that's what I've even read through all of the promotion material and like all the stuff that you guys have outlined through Ultra Pro Wrestling is like if I and maybe it's changed since then because it's constantly in development right now. But like, if I start off with a character in say the '80s, is it still like okay, it's going to kind of there's obviously branching stories and branching elements that are going on, but is it like it still evolves in terms of like okay, I can go from the '80s and go through the promotion, rise through the ranks, and then there's this part where it's like okay, now you can get into like the '90s and thousands. Is that right? Like it'll kind of keep evolving
yeah,
over the years.
yeah. It'll just keep continuing on. The thing is, as well, what we don't want to do with Ultra Pro Wrestling is have like Ultra Pro Wrestling 2024 and then 2025. We just want it to be one game. And so rather than have a new game come out every year, we kind of just want to update almost like a big pack. So we'd have like the 90s pack. And with the 90s, you would get additional storylines that didn't exist in the 80s. match types that didn't exist then, and that allows us to kind of have this game out, do as much work as we can on this version of the game, and then, like I say, rather than releasing a new game entirely,
Yeah.
we instead put all our effort into releasing a pack which comes with new match types, new story modes, possibly new promotions, possibly new characters, and then that's like a DLC pack that we put out for free as well.
So
And that's
that is exciting, Tim, because for at least I know for people that watch content here and Twitter and the community at large, I always hear that is kind of the main thing that people are looking for nowadays when it comes to a wrestling game. The annualized approach, in my opinion, is not the best approach. I understand it from a business perspective, I get it, but I feel like from the player's perspective, it's not what they're looking for nowadays. And I think that model of here's the base game, we have the core down, we know how to the move sets, the match types, the core elements of the game are all there. Now let's build upon it over time. I feel like nowadays that's what players, especially wrestling fans and video game players, are looking for, is that let me get the next DLC. Maybe if that one doesn't interest me, but there's another one, or what, over time there's 2, 3. Oh, I really like this one, and they can almost cherry pick, or they can get it all. Like, I like the choice of that aspect. And then when you look over time of what the game has evolved into, you have this giant game where you've built upon it for several years. So I really like that aspect of it. And then within the game itself, you've got other elements. So while career mode is ever branching, and you can use your custom created wrestlers, you can use can you use the prototypes, that the standard ones that are in the game already, like the base models?
yeah. So
Yeah.
you can use anyone, created wrestler or any. The only thing we're not sure about yet is the DLC characters,
Right.
if they need to be kept in a separate category. But the thing is because of the way the characters are, if you download a character, you get all their assets. So
Right.
there's workaround. You can basically take their assets and put them on.
So I could take when we get like a Matt Cardona that has been announced, we have all the assets. So I could take Matt Cardona's jacket or whatever, all his gear, and I could apply it to my creative wrestler within the game, right? And then run them through a career mode.
Yeah, I know it
Awesome.
sounds like such a roundabout way of doing it, but
But
it's just,
hey, we can get around it easily, and it's just applying the textures, applying that, then that's what you're looking for, right? Especially like in a creation suite. Speaking of creation suite, you talk about create a championship, because that's something we've had for years. Some years it kind of goes away, we don't have it, and then for some wrestling games, and then they bring it back as almost a new feature. But I'm glad to hear, number one, I believe it's Luca on your team, Lucha Lu, who does all like a lot of the design work there, logos, the championships, and all of that. I love the direction of all of it, but can you talk about what players can look forward to when it comes to like a creative championship? What they're going to be able to do in terms of the design, the creation aspect, and then utilizing it in the game.
yeah. So I mean, again, I'm not too familiar what creative championship modes look like with other games, but with Ultra Pro Wrestling, anything in the game, like the characters themselves, the promotions, and the championships, they're all very customizable. In fact, you can delete a championship from a promotion if you want. Uh, Again, once you start the career mode, certain things are locked, but coming from the perspective of you've completed the career mode, the game is now opened up to you. It's now your game. It's now your sandbox. You can go in and change everything about a promotion, about a character, and about a championship. So you can create a promotion as well, and then when you create a promotion, there's an option within there to create a championship for that promotion. I can't remember what the number. There's a max limit on the number of championships that you can create for a promotion. I can't remember what it is, but you go in, you name it. The thing we're actually discussing recently is, some championships actually have more than one belt. So a championship might be the name of the championship, not necessarily the actual physical title. So you might be able to assign multiple belts to one championship title. Like when Jericho was the undisputed champion, he had those two belts. Granted, he didn't have them for very long, but that there was two belts that represented that one championship. So that's something that we need to account for as well. But yeah, the way that we want to do it is very much in the same way that the creator wrestler's done, or anything else in the game. So you start off with a layer of, that would be the strap, and then it's kind of up to you what other layers you want to pile on top of that. So
Mhm.
you can layer, the plates, the little bits that come up if there's a symbol, what the writing is, all that stuff. That's what we're working on just now, and this is why Lucha's been he's been developing them with all that in mind. So when he's creating these championships, that we've actually only shown them off through like Patreon and stuff
Yeah.
up until, but yeah, all of this is really, he's kept this in mind with the layering system, so that they can be used in game. You can create your own. You can use the championships that we give you to go in and edit them, remove layers, change colors, all that kind of stuff. So again, I'm not sure what create a championship mode in other games. I don't know if they had that sort of customization, or
There
if it was
is.
more
uh,
linked.
yeah, it's just I think a lot of it too nowadays is, I mean, for the community, the side of the community that's always into the creation suite, whether it's create a wrestler championship, arenas, and so on, they're always looking for the most access, the most detail. How can I replicate titles that I grew up watching, or something completely original? They want to be able to do that stuff. Could they upload their own textures to it? So, like, if I have my logo, could I upload? Okay, so I could upload my logo to the server, and then or download it, and I could put it into the game.
Yeah, so one of the aspects that we have with the creation suite is a decal edit system. So
Yeah.
that would be like, your logo with a transparent background. And you can take that logo. You can either, we have another system in the game for creating your own textures. So like if you it's actually very reminiscent of Animal Crossing.
Okay.
You can go in there, and it actually shows you like a little pixel map that you can create your own logo and apply it to clothing in the game and stuff like that. So it's that same sort of idea that you can go in and create a decal, and you can apply that to it could be a logo on the belt, it could be the logo for your promotion, or on the apron, or on as part of a costume. So you create that decal first, and then you can use that decal in the game, in any other part of the creation suite.
That's awesome, because that is a big thing for, yeah, the part of the community that is all into creation suite. They want to customize characters. They want every nitty gritty detail, or they want to be able to try to recreate classic wrestlers and basically recreate them and put them into the game. With the creation suite, being able to recreate someone like an Undertaker and redo that. Can you talk about, within that process, would I be able to go in there and be able to almost recreate that character, like in terms of the move set, choke slams, tombstone pile drivers, and all of that?
Yeah, taunts we're not so sure about. Taunts,
Sure. It might be a little bit
if
on the gray area there. Yeah, we might
yeah,
not be able to do Undertaker's full motion, but maybe he could
yeah.
do just like a hand raise or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we noticed that looking through like the AKI games where you have like very discernible taunts, like Hulk Hogan, for example. That's like it's hard to justify that as being a taunt that someone else might have, or whatever.
Yeah.
Especially when you string it all together. But yeah, the idea again coming back. This is kind of what I was trying to say. I kind of need to watch what I'm saying in certain
Sure,
parts,
sure,
but
sure.
this is what I was trying to get at with the career mode. Basically want to create a world in which you can edit the wrestlers that we give you,
Mhm.
and you can edit the promotions. You can create an ECW, you can create a WCW, you can create TNA, Ring of Honor, um, and that's why it's important to associate it with timelines. So that when if you've created your world, your sandbox world, to be the way that you want it to be, and if you want it to be a sort of mirror of real life, then you want, when whatever year turns around, for this promotion to now suddenly exist. That's why it's kind of the way we're doing the career mode. It is complicated, but
Yeah.
it's kind of necessarily complicated in order to get what the original idea of it was. And the original idea was that I'd like to be able to create a character, and stick them into the world, into the real world of wrestling, and play around with stuff. Maybe you can mess it up so that the NWO type stuff doesn't happen, or or that you're a part of it, or whatever. So So that's the goal. We want to create a world in which it sort of mirrors real life, and you can be a wrestler in that world. You can even select a wrestler. You don't have to select the create a wrestler. Like if we've got a prototype for like Sabu or something, and you go in and you edit and you change it and you make it look like Sabu, you can select that character and just play out his storyline within that.
Wow.
And again, we want it to be dynamic as well, though. So it's not a linear. You're not just here like here's Sabu's storyline. You can decide, well, what if Sabu decided, to go to the WWF before anyone else, and like
Wow.
if he sold out or something.
So that's
So
all,
that's
Sam.
that.
That's all within the career mode itself. So like I could create that
Yeah,
template for Sabu, play through it, and then obviously with all of the different story options or what you're kind of create. It sounds more of like you're creating that real open sandbox where there's a lot of dynamic choices of like I want to jump over to this federation or I want to be able to interact with these wrestlers. I can.
yeah, and the way that we have to do it is because once you start the career mode, you can't then go in and edit certain things because certain characters will be
Sure.
locked into, well, angles. We're calling them angles in the game engine. So there's like an angle that's attached to a character, and he's sort of locked in. Whoever his rival is locked into that as well. So we kind of have to make it that when you first play the game, you're not really able to edit too much
Yeah.
until you unlock until you've kind of finished that. Or actually, let's say before you start the career mode, nothing has to be locked. Although, when you first get the game, before you start the career mode, you probably won't have too many characters to edit and play around with. But once you play through the career mode and unlock a bunch of stuff, once that career mode's kind of you get to the end or you get to a point where the game now allows you, let's say you finish the 80s chapter, we'll call it, you can then edit stuff and then go back and play it, and all the edits and changes that you've made will then emerge in the career mode. But once you're playing that career mode, currently just now we can't have it that you
No,
can
it makes
edit and change.
sense. You got to kind of almost lock through the first path, the first playthrough, right? Of say that chapter, like
Yeah,
you said, and then you start unlocking as you go. But I love that idea too because it's the incentive for players to one experience the full career mode as is, and then two, I can go back and like you said, play through say the 80s chapter, and now because I've unlocked it, it gives me the incentive to go back and be like, okay, well now I can change stuff, I can tweak it and customize this part of it, and then like you talked about, you can go through like the 90s and say an attitude era type of era of the game itself, being able to then again play through. I love that replayability because so many times with any game, whether it's a wrestling game or not, you might have a career mode, and it's one playthrough, maybe a second one if it's really compelling or you want to see some different things. But I love the idea of it creating that kind of hybrid of here's the open sandbox element with the career mode, and it's kind of that marriage of like, well, you can do whatever you want with it. The other thing with creations and creating the wrestler you talked about, I've seen the footage online you guys have posted too. I think there was even a more recent update you just came out with regards to a lot of like the body morphing textures and all of that, because I know there was some of that within the demo reveals of being able to obviously change all the textures like we've talked about, add in different layers, pick different body types, but has it's gone from there, hasn't it, where you're able to manipulate quite a bit, right, with your creation.
yeah. I'm just thinking now because I had a link I was going to send to you, and I don't know if I sent it to you or not.
I'll check.
I had,
Well, you you
I
talk
had a
and you talk about it, and I will take a look and see.
I might have forgotten to send you this.
It's okay.
Yeah, I sort of made a video that was a kind of breakdown on what you can do with the creation stuff because when we put out that showcase recently,
Yep.
we spoke about the creation aspects in there, and we had the Bill Dollar character morphin into it was actually the body shape of the Gurren Densai character. Um, and I think people thought, okay, well, that's all you can really do is change from one body type to another. But no, you can actually go in and you can isolate body parts. You can make the traps bigger if you want to make Brock Lesnar. You make those traps bigger.
Hey everyone, this is
You
Sam
can.
Valley.
I have it on
and
I have it on
this is
screen
the
right
first
now, Sam.
video
Actually, so yeah,
Oh,
keep
going
going.
to
Yeah.
And
some
so
sort of
yeah, same
behind the
with
scenes
you know,
stuff with the
different
game.
nose types, different
Some
you know,
we can
eye shapes,
basically
the width
change
and the
his
height
body
and
shape.
all
We
that
can
stuff
blend
with
between
every part of the
the
face.
base, and we'll eventually be
Again,
able
it's
to
like we're
change individual
really
parts.
heavily
You'll be able to
focused on this
change
being a
what type
creative
of mouth.
video game, a creative experience. So of course we have to allow for as much freedom there as possible, because we want people to create, you know, their version of certain wrestlers that we can't get, you know, their likeness of, you know. People want to make the guy that I want to make in the game is Bret Hart, and so you know
Right.
we need to we need to look at how do we do that. Obviously, you know, we're not going to get Bret. He's, I'm sure, locked into lots of other agreements. But if we can find a way to make the creator wrestler uh, make it so that you can create something that looks good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another rabbit hole to go down as well. It was the decision why we, it was why we decided to make it a sort of not realistic. It's not hyper realistic. The realism aspect was something that actually went down the road with the other version of the game back when. But you know, it occurred to me doing this version of it that if I go for realism with this, you're never gonna get them looking good. Like
Right.
like back to the WWE games. The WWE games now, I think their creation suite, you can get guys looking pretty damn close. But go back a few years ago, and created characters always looked like they sort of stuck out, like they just didn't
Yeah,
belong.
they wouldn't even
You know?
get it wouldn't be close, and you would have an in-game version of Undertaker or Stone Cold. You're like,
Yeah,
great, but then you come in with your creation of someone else or a legend, and you're like, this looks so off because the
yeah.
textures and the detail aren't there. So I like that you're going with this approach of let's lean into the art style, let's of like what the game is all about. It's more animated, and that way it gives you the leniency of like it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be that hyper realistic, photorealistic. I think it's a great move too because I think otherwise it probably puts you into a position where you're like, okay, the DLC models look impeccable, and here's your creation model, and you're like, oh, it's kind of a letdown, right? Or they don't mash up as well.
Yeah. And someone actually asked, I think it was on our Discord, someone asked about, you know, being able to uh, sort of interchange male and female characters. Because in No Mercy, you know, you could take all the female attire, clothing, and apply it to the male characters,
Yeah.
because it was they pretty much had that. Um, all the customization and stuff was pretty much a base model that it was just texture swaps and everything like that. So they could do that with those games, and that's something that we're going to be able to do with Ultra Pro Wrestling, because that's been that was in our focus when we started building out. You know what the characters are like fundamentally, how they're built in the creator wrestler system. We don't have like, you know, a separate model of like Matt Cardona.
Hmm.
Matt Cardona in game is assembled with the, you know, the all the all the body parts that other characters in the game use, and that's actually one of the things that's helped us to be able to create much more characters in the base game. Like we currently have about 100 characters.
Hmm.
Now, if that was 100 separate base models, that would be quite a strain on the game engine. But because of the way that we're using this creator wrestler system to again assemble all the pieces, all the you know, the leg, the arm, everything comes together, we actually need less 3D model parts. So it means that there's less data that the game needs to hold, but we can actually from that, we can have like the equivalent of like a text document with just, you know, a line of code that says this is how Matt Cardona's built, this is how Bill Dollar's built, and it allows us to have, you know, almost we don't really have much of a limit in terms of, you know, how many characters could be in the game. You know, if you've got a big enough hard drive, you know, that, and you keep adding and creating characters. I think the Fire Pro games work like this, where, you know, there is no cap. It's basically down to how many characters you want to have in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we have 100 characters just now. There's a good possibility that we'll have more. I'm not sure what the final amount of characters that will be in the game. But again, with it being this whole sandbox thing, if you if you get the game, you play the game, you unlock characters. Once you're in that edit mode, you can go in and delete all the characters that we've presented to you. You know, you can go in and just remove them all and
Oh,
create
wow.
your own guys.
Wow.
Same with the promotions. And it's the same with the championships.
Yeah.
Everything that's in the game that's customizable, we've created in such a way that it's I don't really have a good word to describe it, but it's like this block that, yeah, we've put it there as the developers, but it doesn't have to be there. Once you download this, it's your game. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, I think you want to play through the story mode and everything
Yeah.
like that, because that's going to unlock all the other stuff that you want. But yeah, so that's the approach: complete freedom, complete customization, and that's why texture edit system and all that's important to this, because we want it to be the most creative video game, wrestling game anyway that there is.
Can I ask you about online for a second? Because I love that you're giving players all the freedom possible. You just said of being able to, if you want to delete all this stuff, you can. You can build up your rosters to make them huge. The ability to customize wrestlers, like from the days of No Mercy, I loved being able to go in and, just like you said at the beginning, change out the attire. If I just want to change up a look, I want to change a haircut, make him bald, give him hair the next week, or just change the clothing, make Kane be Blue Kane. Like, I could do these things if I wanted to, and that was fun, even if its own limited thing. Back then, it was incredible. And then the piece that I think players back then and even now love to be able to do is, like, back then I would say, oh man, it'd be great if I could share this, put this online. But can you talk about the online component of that, of what players can expect from being able to create a wrestler, upload, download? What's the deal right now with a creation suite model and the online component?
So online, as it is just now, there's the only functionality that we really have is like one-on-one matches, but
Yeah.
we obviously expand it. It'll be you'll basically go into the menu system and set up a match in the same way that you would if you were offline. So you can set up any match that you want, and then it's down to you how you get other people to join in. You can make private lobbies and things like that. But yeah, the idea that we have for the online mode that's different, that hasn't been done yet,
Yeah.
that we're sure we can do is, there might be challenges that are presented that we haven't considered. As of right now, I don't really see any reason. There's nothing stopping us from doing it as of right now. And this idea of having an online championship that there is only one of. So so this actually wouldn't be a belt that's in the game that you can play around with, because this actually exists online. This exists on sort of our servers, but this is an internet championship. That the idea is that there's only one of these things. So in order to get it, you have to beat whoever has it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's something that, we haven't really seen anywhere else.
Yeah.
If there's other examples of this, even outside of wrestling, if there's examples, please, like, to the viewers, send me some links to that. But yeah, it was an idea that we thought, again, going back to the AKI games. My favorite thing was playing competitively against my friends. So the idea of, like, telling your friends I'm the best at this, and being able to actually prove it by being a champion, that it's not like an achievement. It's not like once you've beat 100 people online, you then get this achievement of a belt and now you can walk out with this belt. It's no, there's literally only one of these things that there's only ever going to be one person in the world at a time that has it, that can walk out to the ring with it.
Wow.
And that in and of itself gives it a sort of prestige. So we thought, well, if we're going to do that, people are going to want to see. Let's say there's a guy who wins this title and he holds on to it for like a month.
Yeah.
Like, people are going to want to see, like, the next match. And
yeah, you're
so
creating this entire online internet, like this entire online component, and being able to incorporate community and wrestling fans and turn it into its own world and lack of a better word, universe of being able to say, well, we want to come in and watch on UPW stream, for example, the heavyweight champion is defending the belt right now. Yeah, there's only one, and if he wins, he's going to continue on, obviously, or if he loses, that's really interesting. It even makes me think of, like, wow, down the road, as things develop, the possibilities are really cool of like, what about the, a mid-tier title, like the Intercontinental level title, tag team titles, hardcore, and having representatives, having champions for each of them. But I love that way of doing it. It's different. It's not just play online and play a match against somebody. There is that chase of like, I want to try and win and get up into the rank. Would it be more of like a rank system of like how would I become a number one contender for the belt? How would you challenge for the belt?
Well, yeah, so there would be a ranking system in order to determine that. And obviously we are still at the early stages, so we need to sort of test it and think of all the, because we want everyone to sort of have a fair shot, and so there is other ideas of, just in wrestling you have the Royal Rumble, where the premise is anyone could win. Anyone could like just pick that lucky number, win the Royal Rumble, and all of a sudden they've got a title shot. So we want to do things like that as well, where the lower ranked players that aren't necessarily in line for a title shot, they might do something. They might have like 3 or 4 wins in a row that bumps them up, gives them this opportunity that leads to something else. There might end up being, all sorts. We may tie in story aspects with their online career as well. But another idea is, obviously, I quite like esports and things like that. You sometimes get these big tournaments like Smash Brothers tournaments, and you'll get like Team Japan versus Team America, and it's a big event that people come and watch. So if we can eventually get to that stage, we can't help but think about how amazing it would be to have like this big, like an actual event hall and have people come in and watch whoever the champion is. And, if we can get whoever the champion is to come on and like cut a little promo, things like that, we could get commentators to break down the match as it's happened,
Oh, that's
so
fun.
it's all that sort of side of it. Yeah, it is. It's its own world. It's almost like a completely separate thing from the game because it's such a big thing by itself. But that's exciting. We like the idea of that.
Can I ask that? I love that there's just so much room with the game in terms of like where it can go over time, because that seems to be a lot of your focus here. Is obviously let's nail everything we can for when it does release, but you're looking so much further ahead of like, this is where we want to be with multiple DLC packs, whether it includes arenas, more customization options, match types, etc., like you said, or it's going down the path of like, let's keep building upon the online component. I love all that because it gives players that real big hook and reason. Here's why I'm coming back to this game for years, right? To be able to just come on, pick up and play, or they've added new match types, or they've added more to the online. It gives players so much more. The other thing I wanted to ask you, though, was with regards to match types. Can you give any insight as to what players could expect when they get the game, of like what match types are in the works, what you're planning to release with it?
Yeah, I think on the first release it's going to be kind of basic in terms of we'll have one-on-one matches. We'll have tag team, but there probably won't be special type match. We're not going to have like a Hell in a Cell type equivalent right away, things like that. We get loads of suggestions all the time for different match types, and pretty much, well, anything that involves weapons or a certain stipulation, like it's not a good example, but like a lumberjack match where it's a completely different way that it works as opposed to a one-on-one match. One-on-one match where the rules are simple, pin or disqualification. We can take that and we can apply it to like a tag team setting or three-way match. You can drop in more wrestlers in that match setting, and it doesn't fundamentally change too much. But adding in like a barbed wire rope match that involves like different,
Way more
mechanics. Yeah, so all the stuff that requires completely different mechanics to work. Gonna come way later, and that's one of the reasons we think it's a good idea to focus on the 80s as a starting off point as well, because we can kind of get away with less match types. We might have like a first blood match or something like that.
Makes sense though, because those are typically the types of matches what you're going to see if you're the kind of first push of the game releases focusing on the 80s. what do we get? We get a lot of big men throwing meat around and smacking each other left and right, and it's just a lot of one-on-one matches, tag team matches, traditional types of match types.
Yeah, I mean there are obviously some matches, like I think there was like the bull rope match and stuff like that. I think they probably crept in around that time that we could maybe justify trying to do something like that. But in terms of it being the 80s, but in terms of us being able to get that out there in time, that's probably going to be hard to do. So we're probably looking at the initial release of the game is probably going to be somewhat basic in terms of match types options. But the plan is, people ask us all the time, like, are we going to have light tubes and tables and thumbtacks and all that stuff? Yeah, of course we want to cover the whole world of wrestling. So anything that we can put in, as long as we can find an example of it as a match type, then we try and do it.
One of the things there is, maybe you can give some insight, maybe not, but it's with those match types and looking at it from like, okay, we have to work with, say, like a tag team match or a triple threat match, because we have to work with the set characters that we have in a regular match types. Let's say a triple threat match or a tag. Would I be able to have any of the within the options of the menu? Do you see players being able to go in and go, okay, we can tweak some of the stipulations or some of the elements because we're in the base core of the game? So could I, one-on-one match, could I toggle pins off and just make it submission or TKO? Could we do those things? And likewise, a triple threat. I always love a three-way dance for the days of ECW, and then just being able to do that. But could we do something like an elimination within a triple threat match or tornado tag? Would those things be options?
Yeah, I actually had a video on this a while ago. I think I took it down because I ended up the menu system, the layout and everything, and the character models. It was all kind of outdated, so I ended up taking it down. But I actually had a video that went through showing how all the stuff is created within the menu system. So you start off, you go to exhibition, you select the match type, then you move on. So the match type can be one-on-one, tag team, triple threat. You then move on to the stipulation. You select the stipulation. Could be I was going to say first blood there, but I think that might be in the rules section, which is the next page. So you've got match type, stipulation, and rules, and that combination kind of allows you to set up, just about. I don't want to say just about any match that you can think of, because there will be people that think of a match that it's not possible
but
to do.
That's what I loved about the days of No Mercy was we didn't have the ability to be like, okay, I can create any match type under the sun, but within the elements that we have available, I could tweak it. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a submissions only match, because I toggled off the pins and it changes the rules, or it's a false count anywhere or whatever, no count out. I can toggle those things on and off. I think that's what a lot of players would look at for games like this is, sure, give me a tag team match, but can I customize it so I can be like DQs on and off and time limits and things of that nature, and then you have more fun there.
An example I sometimes use of what you can do in terms of match types is you could have a tag team, or is that right? Well, you can have a Royal Rumble First Blood match. So like the only way to eliminate an opponent in the Royal Rumble, I was going to say a tag team Royal Rumble First Blood match, but no, I don't think that's right.
No, that's wild. If you gave us that is way too much.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can do tag team Royal Rumble because they're in the first block of match type. Yeah, but so okay, I came up with an example of something that you can't do, but there you go. You can create pretty much. It allows for so much
to be able to do like a Royal Rumble and then toggle it for First Blood, for example. So I could, yeah. That's pretty sweet. That's that. We don't really get that nowadays. Sam, as we start to like wrap up here, I did want to be able to talk about, guys, if you want to be able to support Ultra Pro Wrestling, please do so with their Patreon. It's linked into the chat. I'll have it into the link in the description as well, so you can see everything that they're working on when it comes to the game. Sam, whereabouts are you in terms of development? And I know there were reports and you've done interviews previously of like potential windowed release dates, when players can expect things, even with a playable demo, updated demos, and all of that, looking into the new year. But do you have rough timelines that you can share with people of where we're at?
Yeah, I mean, we've not put out anything official yet because it's all very much like an acknowledgement that we're a small studio and we have kind of this is where we'd like to be. This is what we want to do. Back in February we launched this Kickstarter, and we were on a good enough track at that point to be able to say, oh, maybe by the end of the year we'd have this playable demo. So much has happened between now and then, all for the good. But it's it's led to us having to say, actually, we're probably gonna have to look at this timeline that we have again for the demo. So not a hard timeline, but we're looking for you know early-ish next year.
Yeah.
We should have a demo out. And if for whatever reason that gets pushed back, just know that it's because something good happened, not because something bad happened.
It's kind of refreshing to hear. It's like we're not having big issues. We're having good positive things have happened, which is we got to focus on this.
I mean, we the amount of people that we have contacting us that want to help out and want to be involved in this game, what it's doing is it's kind of scaling everything up. Like Lucha, for example. We now have Lucha on board, which is going to make the in-game graphics, the 2D assets, the belt designs, all that stuff. That's all improving the development of the game. But then when we realize, oh, actually we can improve this area here, it can sometimes add a little bit of time on. It can sometimes mean that it may either take more time or more money in that direction. And so this is why as well we have a Patreon that if anyone wants to help us out, they're more than welcome. It all goes into the game. It all makes the game better. And we have a rough idea that we think, and it might be optimistic, but we think we can get the game out by the end of next year. At least the base version of the game. Obviously, we're talking about like 90s DLC packs and all this stuff. That was all set to come later anyway. But the base version of the game, we think it's possible we'll get out the end of next year. If it doesn't happen, if it does have to be pushed back, like I say, it's only because something happened where we were able to justify focusing on a certain aspect of the game that will improve it. Nothing's really holding us back in terms of motivation and in terms of determination and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, the game it's looking good. I've been going through the menu system recently, trying to basically take all the we have these 100 characters, and so we're trying to just get them visible in the game as assigned to promotions. Work out who we think our prototype characters are. Work out who we think the initial champions would be, and all that stuff. We're at that stage just now, and it's fun. It's just being able to turn on the game and see these characters. Just go through the character select screen and see them all. It's
really
awesome.
Cool.
It's fun. It's exciting, and it's going good.
So Sam, as we wrap up here, guys, we do have a special announcement that Sam can obviously kick off for us because this is pretty awesome news. But stick around though, because for about 5 minutes or so, we'll do just some Q&A with people in the chat if you want to stick around, and then we'll be wrapping things up. But Sam, what is your big news? I have it ready to go, so you can tee it up you want, my friend, and then I can let everybody know visually.
So we got couple of new people signed. I won't actually say anything because I'll let the video just reveal.
All right, well, here we go for everybody for your exclusive reveal.
Welcome to Ultra Pro Wrestling.
There you go, guys. We have Motor City Machine Guns are coming to Ultra Pro Wrestling. That's awesome, Sam. Way to go. That's a great addition to your DLC.
Yeah, it is. Current champions just now. I don't know if I can say any more than that, but you guys know. So, yeah, very happy with that one.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. The DLC itself is shaping up to be bigger and bigger. And obviously, you've alluded to this. Is like, hey, as people have reached out or they're wanting to come on board with the project, it's great to see. So the roster is expanding. But I've been fans of Motor City Machine Guns myself personally for many years back in the days of like TNA. So it's great to see that it will be playable when the game is released. So hats off to you, my friend. This is all sounding
Yes.
great, and it's looking great too.
Yeah, it's going to be fun doing a lot of their moves.
So guys, we are going to wrap things up here for this portion of the show. Sam is going to stick around for just a few minutes, and we'll answer some questions here. And as we do, Sam, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll stick around and we'll have a little Q&A right now with everybody. All right, guys. So if you got questions for Sam in the chat, we'll take an extra couple of minutes here and get your feedback. If you guys are channel members, any level either, I will obviously see your names highlighted in here. We'll get it out, but I'll try to make sure we can go through as much as we can. Freddie says, will there be a community creation suite where you can download wrestlers' arenas, belts, movesets, etc.?
Yeah, we definitely want that. Again, we're so heavily focused on the creation aspect. If someone does spend a lot of time and energy and effort making that perfect version of Bret Hart, and even with the texture edit system and getting everything right, we obviously want that creation to be shared, and so that everyone doesn't have to, go and redo it and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
We can just get someone that's really good at doing it. They can upload it, and it makes it easier for everyone else. Especially if you have characters with complex costumes, like like RVD for instance. If someone was to make a really good version of that dragon, whatever costume, pick whatever costume, and yeah, if they were to spend a lot of time getting it really detailed, getting all the colors right, we shouldn't have a situation where every single person has to replicate that. So having communications just makes sense for that.
Another question that's popped up just a few times right now, like Brian has just asked in the chat, will modding be supported for the game? Are we looking to support modding in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think with modern, it makes it kind of difficult to get those creations on the console versions and stuff like that. Like we obviously we do support modern, but at the same time, this is why we want to do the texture edit system and all this stuff, because we almost want to make it so that you don't have to go outside of the game in order to you know
be able to do it that way. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Rob asked in the chat, and he's asked this. I saw it during when we were talking, and he asked this earlier. So, in No Mercy, one of the most iconic things is the low blow with the ding sound. Are we going to be able to get that in there, or is it not possible? Can we get something like that?
I mean, that's actually been a topic of some.
Is it actually a topic in the office? Are we round tabling this?
Not so much in the office, but in our Discord, this has been brought up, and there's people that are for it because it pays tribute to the AKI games. Other people who, they're saying this is the one thing in the AKI games that they're not a fan of, because it kind of, the AKI games, they always felt kind of simulation to me. It wasn't an over the top cartoony wrestling experience. So yeah, having that little ding, I don't know. I'm kind of torn. Like I kind of see both sides of the argument. I'll probably, we'll put it in the Discord. We'll put it up to a vote. I'll probably let everyone else decide because I don't know.
Surround it in like a future DLC patch update, and we'll be like, by the way, the lead thing that we were adding in is low blow with the ding sound and the replay angles. Stephen Hunt asked in the chat, is there any chance of a survival mode like No Mercy?
Yeah. Even in virtual pro wrestling, there was modes in there that weren't in the No Mercy and things like that, like league modes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we're not just paying tribute to No Mercy, we're paying tribute to the whole thing. So yeah, we're gonna have modes for survival, for round robin tournaments, and for leagues as well.
Nice. Jamie writes, will there be body damage physics like holding a hurt arm or your leg as you're going through a match? Are there going to be signs or physical signs on the characters that they've been ruling it out?
Yeah, I mean that was something that was in No Mercy. They actually had that. You know, if you beat the guy's leg down enough, he would walk around holding his leg. Um, Not necessarily. They wouldn't have like a dramatic limp necessarily.
Yeah, but you
Um,
could see them slowing down, or they're dragging a little
well,
bit.
yeah, I'm now thinking. I'm not sure if it was just an animation change or if it actually did decrease the speed that you would move at. I'd need to go back and check that.
Hmm.
Um, I'm always trying to think of ways as well. That obviously AKI did that, so I'm thinking, how can we change it up a little bit? How can we expand on it? So, maybe if they didn't adjust the speed mechanics and it was just an animation change, then
Yeah.
maybe adjusting speed is something that we could do. That
Uh,
you know,
Steve Bandit in the chat asks, "Can the wrestlers throw weapons like in No Mercy? Pick up, yeah. I could take a weapon and I could just throw it across the ring to the wrestler and hit him."
yeah. Well, one thing that wasn't in No Mercy that we really want to put in is, like when RVD throws the chair and the
Yeah.
opponent catches it. We want to do something like what we're not a fan of is having that just be like an animated sequence that plays out where you're not really involved.
Yeah.
One thing that we always come back to is like if you look at the rocks, the people elbow in the game, you had to perform that yourself, the whole sequence. You had to go up, push A at the shoulders, and then he would do the pose and start running. But then it was back in your control. So if you
Right.
wanted to run over him, you had to hold down the run button. And then when he comes back to do the elbow, you had to time it right. So it wasn't an animated sequence that played out. So in the same sense, with the throwing a weapon, having the opponent catch it, we could do it in a way where that's an animated sequence, but I don't feel that would be, true to the way that
Mhm.
AKI did things. So we're trying to think of ways in which, you can throw the weapon, have the opponent catch it, and perform like a Van Damnator and have it look right and everything.
Awesome. JC is asking, I think this would tie into what we talked about with career mode, but he's saying, is the game going to have a booking career / GM mode? And I think what you've explained already is it sounds like it's all encompassing within the career mode itself is going to have kind of all of those elements in there.
Well, the career mode, we've intentionally called it Legacy Career Mode. And the version of it that we're working on is you play as a wrestler, so you're playing out that career. But the reason that we called it Legacy Career Mode is so that we could leave room for having another career mode that would be essentially the same thing, but rather than take the position of a wrestler, you take the position of a promotion, and then you can decide what matches or what angles you put on the characters within that promotion. You don't get to play around with any other promotion, so it becomes a sort of Booker mode where the goal is to try and grow your promotion and out compete other people and
So
all
kind
that
of
kind
like
of
an
stuff.
element of like a story designer and being the booker GM, so I can
Yeah, yeah,
run
but
AEW or my federation, and I can control all the elements of like, okay, here's the match card we're gonna do, the belts. Even if I want to incorporate, here are the storylines and what the actions are going to be in there. I'm controlling all of
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
but the thing with that is that that's not something that we're expecting to have on the first release. That would
Yeah,
be a later edition. But the fact that we want that eventually, it means that everything that we're doing with the career mode, we've got that other version of it in mind. So we're not putting any in anything that's going to prevent us from doing that later on.
just checking through if we got any more last minute questions here, guys, before we wrap up and let out of here. Uh, do, 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 do. Uh, Sean Nathan just asked, is there like, we have so much with the creation suite, but is there going to be like a create a finisher? Because we're going to be able to select move sets, but is there a create a finisher element in there?
I mean, you can assign what your finisher is
Yeah,
to your wrestler, but no, there isn't. We don't have like a create a move function.
right.
We're trying to kind of get around certain things. So, like in the AKI games, Scott Hall, for instance, you do the inside ear's edge, but he would do the pose.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously it's identified as his finisher because he's doing that pose. So we're trying to expand on that again. We're trying to make it so that you could make your finisher a power bomb or a pile driver or whatever. And if you taunt when he puts the head down, you'll do the pose. So it kind of makes it your finisher, but
Yeah.
rather than saying it in the the creator wrestler part of the game, we kind of want to make it that you just pause mid move and it'll transition into
Go
that.
into the sequence, yeah.
Yeah. So it makes it so that people have their own versions of things, essentially.
Yeah. When you talked about, this has come up twice here, it's a long requested feature, but when it comes to creation suite, I can create, you said like I can, put in the textures and the logos and customize all of that. Is there any way that players are going to be able to add in custom music for entrances, for example?
So that's another big topic that we're not sure quite where we're going to land on that. There's a few ideas. One of the things that messes it up is that we've got this whole idea of the online mode being a big feature, and if people like upload music and then play it online,
Yeah.
It can kind of mess that up, and especially if we have a whole like championship that's dedicated to people watching it on a stream, we don't know how that's going to work out with the custom music side of it, because there is Spotify integration that you could get custom music. If we do that, we're probably going to have to limit it to offline. Another solution that we have is, one thing that we've actually got in the game in a primitive form just now is a MIDI editor. So you can go in and actually change the notes and make a MIDI track. Obviously,
cool.
the quality is not as good as like is a custom MP3 uploader or anything. But if you can make your own track within the game, and again have that track be something that you could upload to Community Creations, at least then you'd have something that you could use for, especially going through the 80s where people might have songs that you just can't get access to or something. I don't know. You have you could create Bret Hart's theme tune in a MIDI version.
That's cool.
So
we'll finish up with this question here from Jamie, and it'll be our last one for the day. And guys, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you again for coming on the show. Jamie says, Sam, any favorite part of this game you're personally excited about?
I don't know. It's hard to pick a favorite. I mean, just all of it really. The creation aspect, I think, probably still. That's probably still my most favorite part. I think just being able to create guys. But then I don't know. I mean, once we get to the point where we can actually play competitively, that might be my favorite part. That's the one thing that I always wish that those AKI games that I was able to do was play online. Obviously, being a big fan of those games and playing them so much, I always thought I was the best. So I want to be able to put my skills online and find out how good I actually was in the whole grand scheme of things. But no, I'm a big fan of the creation aspect of this, and so that's why we're focused as well so heavily. I want to be able to make anyone. So yeah.
Awesome. So guys, thank you again for joining us here today live on the show. Sam, thank you very, very much for giving your time and the opportunity to speak with you about the game. I'm excited for it. There's a lot going on with it. There's so many facets to this that has me excited just as a wrestling fan and as someone who grew up with the games of No Mercy. It's pretty much right in my wheelhouse. So if you guys want to be able to support Sam, support Ultra Pro Wrestling, the link to the Patreon is in the chat. It's pinned at the top. It'll be in the description of the video on demand as well. And you can follow Sam over on Twitter too, and the team at Ultra Pro Wrestling at UPW Video Game, at UPW Video Game, if you want to check them out, because they'll give you all the updates, everything there, as well as going over to the Patreon, the webpage, and being able to see everything, all the details with the game and the updates. Sam, thank you very, very much again for joining us, and hopefully we can talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Let me talk to him.